Let's make a deal. So one of the things we want to do first is let me introduce myself. My name is A.C. Pinella. I teach in the speech department, and I'm also the vice president for Academic Senate. I'm going to be here to help you moderate the fun and games today. Let me tell you a little bit about how today is going to work. We are going to do a couple of things. We're going to start off with a brief introduction from our president of Academic Senate, Dustin Handy. Then Dr. Cynthia Olivo is going to be talking about some of the counseling impacts. This is probably what the students are most interested in talking about, things like ed plans and scheduling classes. Then afterwards, we're going to be able to have a chance to ask questions for the faculty who are sitting here. What we're encouraging is that this conversation is going to be about the impact of the pedagogical issues. So questions that you might have about how you are sequencing and ordering your classes, how you might adjust curriculum in order to fit into a 12-week summer session, those kinds of issues. I'm going to take a second also to publicize that if you're concerned about the implementation of the calendar, the Faculty Association will be having a meeting at noon on Thursday in here. Where that would be a great place for you to come and learn more about the implementation and the process that's going forward on the Faculty Association side, kind of the workers and workplace issues. So with that, let me first say that you should have all received some kind of comment card on the way in. What we're going to do is ask that you turn those comment cards back in. Our goal is to answer as many of the questions that we can as possible. And what we're going to do is go through and kind of make sure that we get them in an order so that we get a representation, particularly so that we can get student voices heard in the room. We'll filter them through. If you at all have a question later on, something that is a follow-up question, please feel free to keep those questions coming in. We will ask, when you're asked to approach the mic to read your question, that you do keep it at like a 1 to 2 minute limit. And I'm afraid this is where my speech teacher role may come into play. I will probably give you a time signal, this meaning that you have 1 minute left, this meaning that you have 30 seconds left, and this meaning, I love you, please wrap up your question. And so just to make sure that we get everybody's questions answered. Does that make sense? So with that, if you haven't gotten your questions in, please go ahead and pass them to the back table where Pat and Judy are. And I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Dustin Handy.
Thank you, Pinella. Welcome, everybody. I'll be very brief. We want to make sure we have enough time for questions. This meeting was called in the spirit of a meeting that the Vice President and I had with the President of the college when we sort of brought to the administration's attention that many faculty and students and staff felt that a lot of the concerns about this calendar change had not been publicly addressed in this kind of a way. And so the President basically, and us together, created this forum that we're having today. We want you to feel free to ask any pedagogical questions, even ones that maybe we haven't even thought of. I have my notepad. I'll be taking notes during the course of this meeting. And then we have a follow-up meeting with the Executive Committee of the Senate and the Executive Committee of the college to discuss what comes up today. So again, we encourage you to ask questions. If we don't get to them all, we'll be taking all the questions with us and taking a look at them after this meeting is over. So even if we don't get to everybody, because I have thoughts of one, I'm sure many of you in the room do as well. So we want to make sure that those questions eventually do get answered. So again, don't worry if we don't get to everybody today. Your questions will be looked at later. And so again, I encourage you, if you haven't already written a question, Judy and Pat are in the back to take questions. They will be bringing them up to us during the meeting. And if you have a follow-up question, if you feel like a question has not been fully answered, feel free to fill out that form and ask for a follow-up question during the meeting today. And again, thank you all for coming, and I thank everybody on the panel for being here as well. Thank you.
So next up on our parade is going to be Dr. Cynthia Olivo, and she's going to be talking about some of the effects that this will have on students' ed plans, counseling, and scheduling. So please give her a round of applause.
Thank you, everyone. So I just wanted to show students and teachers, also staff, anybody who interacts with students, this is where you can direct a student to submit a request for us to review your academic record, so that we can identify if you're 1 to 3 classes from graduation, then we will put you on a list so that we can help enroll you in the classes you need to complete your degree. So if you go to the PCC website, from the home page you click on Student Services, and then you click on Counseling. on the counseling site, over on the right column, you see the word graduation. You click there, and then we tell you what all of your degree options are. What degrees are available at PCC, which GE pattern should I follow to get my associate degree, and then click on how do I apply for graduation. And then in the yellow highlighted terms, preliminary graduation check request. If you have already applied for graduation this fall, how many students in the audience have already applied for graduation? So what we call it in the academic calendar is graduation petition request. Have any of you submitted a grad petition for fall? Raise your hand if you have. Okay, if you have not, and you want to identify how many courses you have left to complete your goal, then I would recommend that you go to this site and you submit your name. So if I put in my initials here, it leads to a form. And in this form, we ask you basic information, but the most important info is what degrees would you like to earn. If you do not know, then we will recommend one based upon the courses you have already completed. This provides me in counseling with an opportunity to have the counselor review your record, and then we currently have 72 students on a list. The 72 students that I have 1 to 3 classes they need to complete in the spring. Those students we will help enroll in the classes they need. So if you would like to get on that list, I encourage you to please submit your grad petition request. Now, in terms of educational plans, at this point, we do not have a sophisticated electronic ed plan system. That's something we're hoping that we'll get for all of you, a degree audit system, so that you don't have to do this and then we don't have to manually review your record. In the future, with the Banner DataTel product, we will have a degree audit product for you so that you can go online and click a button and see which courses you've completed and which ones you still have left to complete. At this point, when you come and get an ed plan with a counselor, you're exploring your what-if scenarios on paper. You're discussing what your potential goals are on paper. Right now, you walk away with the paper. You come back, let's say if you withdrew from a course that we had placed on your ed plan, you didn't complete the course, and you come back and you revisit that ed plan with us, and we do one all over again. So if you have questions about your ed plan, I would suggest a couple of things. We have an online counselor. So right under the graduation link, you can also submit a question to the online counselor. If you don't have time, and also because we all know that counseling is really busy, so there's oftentimes a long line to get in to see a counselor, you can also submit an online request. So we would be happy to answer your questions about your spring schedule through an online request. And then as usual, you're welcome to please come into the L building. We have a couple of options there. We have an express counselor, and we can do advising on 1 semester ed plans. So it's not a matter of looking at 8 semesters and talking with you at great detail, but we can ask you what's your overall goal and discuss your 1 semester ed plan for spring. And then the final option is a 30-minute appointment with a counselor. Again, if you submit a grad petition request, then we'll already have looked at your record so we can maximize the time talking with you about completing your goal. The other point I wanted to make here is that if you notice on the PCC website, there is now an FAQ regarding the 3-term calendar, and there's an email address called Calendar Hotline. So what Juan Gutierrez is doing are those that are related to education plans and student schedules, those are coming to me. And I responded to all of those that I've received thus far. That's my part. Any questions?
So are we asking you or submitting?
Vanilla?
Yeah. You can, do you want to go ahead? Well, then,
that was my question.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just collecting them right now. Cool. All right, thank you very much.
Mel, do you want to answer your question?
Oh, yes, sure. The question that I actually wrote down when you were offering that is, as the MESA program outreach specialist, and my students are here, one of the questions we've been having is, a lot of them don't petition to graduate, they transfer. So is there a transfer petition, where if they're really close to transferring, they can get on that list, one? And then, if you don't have one, I would love it if you could do that, because I know a lot of my students are expecting that, and the graduation, the AB 1440 hasn't aligned with a lot of their majors yet, these are high-end majors, so they're stuck. Secondary to that, the question about the online counseling, is that live chat, real time, or is it an email, and how long, what's the turnaround for those questions? Because a lot of them come to me, and I'll get one big email and send it to someone, and then expect that back, and if they can just directly connect with you, that would be awesome. What's the turnaround? Thank you.
Sure. So the answer to the two questions, first, do we have a grad petition request for students who want to transfer without earning a degree from PCC? The answer is I would recommend that you submit the grad check on the grad check page that I displayed to you, and you can say that you're not interested in getting an associate degree, but in transferring. You can still list that information there, and that way it gives us an opportunity to review your pattern just to see if by chance you do qualify for one of our local degrees. I know the SB 1440 degrees don't align with every single major at this point, but sometimes students do complete a degree, and then we'll just point it out to you, hey, did you know you completed this pattern? And, it's an added benefit. Otherwise, we only check if you say transfer only, then we check to make sure you met the basic requirements for admission.
But will they be also guaranteed if they're only 3
Yes, that gets you on the list.
Okay.
That gets you on the list.
Thank you.
So it also gives us an opportunity to put your name on our Excel spreadsheet so that you can get the classes that you need.
Just make sure they write down transfer, not graduation.
Yeah. Then the answer to your second question, what's the turnaround time for questions submitted to the online counselor? It's 3 days.
Great. So at this point, what we're going to do is kind of open up for questions. I've been collecting comment cards as they've been coming up here. What I'm going to do is allow you to come up to the mic, and you can go ahead and ask your question. I'll let you know kind of what the speaking order is as we get more questions, or if you have a follow-up, I'll allow time for a follow-up. The next question that I have is from Karina.
Okay, everybody will go.
Go on. So, or would you rather, do you want me to just read it for you?
Yeah, but make it better than what
As a speech teacher. All right. So the next question that we have is a student-related question about high unit classes such as Math 5C or Physics 1B and 1C. Are they going to be offered during any of the summer sessions or any of the sessions, short-term sessions?
The answer to that question, is this on?
Yes.
The answer to that question is yes, they will be offered. We're going to look them out, though, very much like we did in this past spring 2012 when we did a special spring 4 intersession. So we're going to look them out, those classes, not only in the beginning of the spring 13 calendar, we'll also plan out and put those in the summer as well.
For both the summer intersessions?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
So the next question that I have is from Brad C. Do you want to come up, or do you want me to read it for you?
No, go ahead.
So there are about 4 comment cards up here that have to deal with why does the spring session have to start on January 7th as opposed to January 14th. There seem to be some concerns about setting up rooms and labs in order to come back quickly back from the break.
The January 7th date was the date that's identified in a previous calendar that was established as a group of working document if we ever went through a spring class schedule that started out when you're intersession. And so January 7th gets identified as the start date. Now, it's been brought to my attention that there are concerns such as the panel just indicated for preparation of classes, labs, those sorts of things, which are the activities that start at the beginning of an academic period prior to the first day of instruction. So at this point, it is January 7th. However, as those things come forward, at least in my office, I guess everybody knows who I am, right? At least my office will continue to take that under advisement and look at the possibility of trying to give enough time, lead time for faculty to be able to come in advance, get labs ready, get all those things ready for the instructional support component in classrooms and labs, so that we'll be ready to go January 7th if that day does not change.
And if I can just add to that real quick, whatever the instructional area needs, we'll make sure on the business side and facilities side that we work ahead of time and try to do the things that we need to do in order to get things ready.
Does that answer that question, or is there an additional follow-up question? Yeah.
If I could follow up with that, I was very much counting on that time when I agreed to teach an online course, which, as we all know, takes a great deal of time to prepare for. And I was really counting on the winter session times to be able to completely create this new course. Now, the later the spring session starts, the more able I will be. And I know we have other faculty who are in exactly the same boat. They have a lot of prep to do. And really, we all know what happens during the holidays. Suddenly it's January 2nd, and we're wondering how we're going to get ready for classes that are a week away. And so having a little bit of extra time, I think, would benefit a great number of us with the ability to prepare for classes, especially people like myself who have new classes for free and online courses.
Well, again, I appreciate that question and that comment, and I'm taking under advisement. I know that those kind of concerns arise, and I suspect out here we will get more of those as we go through the next few days and next few weeks in preparation for it. So definitely we'll take that under advisement and look to make the best informed decision for start time to allow as much prep time for not only online development of curriculum, but also for, again, everything we need to do on the ground for labs and classrooms.
Other questions regarding the start date?
Yeah, but if that's going to be something that's going to be taken under consideration, I have students who are extremely anxious about, is this the start date or not the start date? They're planning their entire, daycare, they're planning all kinds of things around it. So when will we have an actual set date? When will the negotiations no longer be an issue that keeps this as a tentative? What's the threshold?
I'm sorry. Again, as we said today, ladies and gentlemen, the start date of the spring semester is January 7th. Okay. What I will do is I will compile this information as quickly as possible and go back and discuss with Dr. Rocha and others on the exact possibility of moving it. And I hear loud and clear that that's a decision that needs to be made sooner than later. So obviously we'll look to get that decision back as quickly as possible. I don't want to put a definite firm date on it because every time I do time slips and the calendar moves. But we'll look to get that done as quickly as possible. But for purposes of this discussion going forward, we're already looking at January 7th as the start date. If that changes, we'll let everybody know as soon as possible.
All right, with that,
They move it how much further, because I plan to do internships in the summer, and then I don't want them schooling, so it's like me getting an internship in the summer.
sorry, yes, the question was how much, if the start date gets moved back, how much later would it get pushed back to? The relationship being to students who are doing internships over the summer or taking classes at other places, we need to plan for that.
Okay, if everyone recognizes this is a best guess estimate, my assumption would be the furthest it would go back would be a week. And so my sense is that if it isn't January 7th, the latest the spring semester will start would be January 14th. But if you have pins in place, don't write that down as a guarantee. And with January 7th, if that changes, we'll let everyone know.
The next question that I have is from Krista Gogan in the library. Do you want to read them or do you want me to read them?
You can read them. Can I just say they're kind of specific, so if it's not appropriate to answer those kind of things right now.
No, I think that they're really good. These questions clearly relate to the library, but the first question is, program students are asking, will winter classes be then shifted to summer session 1? That's the first question.
Winter classes shifted to summer session 1. That is an option. It's also an option that 6-week period where normally we would be offering winter session classes. Those classes can still be mounted and offered in the first 6 weeks of what we'll now be calling the spring. So from January 7th, January 14th, whatever that start date is, let's say it's the 7th. Within that 6-week period, we can still offer a course that normally would have been mounted in a winter 13 intersession, and then follow that up with short-term classes behind that within the construct of that spring semester for students to be able to complete the spring as well. So if there was a, let me see that. So if there was a class that's offered in a 6-week period called winter session, that same class could be mounted in the first 6 weeks of the spring, in the same time frame it normally would be, or if it didn't fit the scheduling of the class effectively for students, the it could well be mounted in 6 weeks in the summer.
Do you have a follow-up to that one, Krista, or did that make sense?
Well, it's just we designed it so that they could finish in a year. So if they can't take the class in the winter, they want to know, can we take it in the summer and still finish in a year?
And that the ideal configuration is we can't take it in the winter, we'll put it in the summer, so students can't complete it next year.
The next question that she has is about summer session 2. Would it be like it was in the past where it was a minimal summer session? So things like, will library services be adjusted, those things?
Well, not being here for when we have a summer session too, this may not sound like a complete answer to everyone. The plan within a 3-term academic calendar is to offer it as fully summer scheduled as possible. So it will be approximately a 14-week summer schedule within which we can mount 2 distinct, if you will, 76-week sessions within a 14-week schedule. So for purposes of planning out to the summer, I would suggest we need to look to plan with the summer being as whole of an academic period as fall and spring.
Does that make sense?
I just have a follow-up on that. I want to make sure, because we work with the high school students and they don't get out till the middle of June. I want to make sure that the second summer session will be as comprehensive as the first, so they have a variety of classes that they can take.
Yeah, again, we're going to look to make that second session as comprehensive, strictly as you described, that to coincide with the completion of high school sessions, but also make it as comprehensive as possible on the front end, so all of our students who will need to complete a summer class to be ready to transfer to CSU or UC can have their requirements done in June as opposed to in August in date as it is now.
Yes.
Hi. When we had 2 summer sessions before 2004, it was our experience that the second summer session was poorly attended, which is why, one reason why we went to the winter session, took the second summer session, moved it to the winter. I'm also concerned, this is slightly, has to do with pretty much on that, starting or finishing the spring semester as early as we will be, we're going to miss picking up a lot of high school students, graduating high school students, and who I don't know how many of them are going to be willing to want to go to the second session anyway. So I have real misgivings about the viability of the second summer session.
Well, I can respond. I mean, all of those are really kind of unknown. I mean, I understand the concern that we may not pick up high school students. Going back to what I said earlier, we are taking that into consideration, leaving out the instructional leads and myself as we talk about the development of the class schedule with the faculty. And we will look to make the, for lack of a better way, put in the second half of what will be a summer session as full and as complete as possible. Once we get that developed, then obviously we're going to have to pick up the component of outreach to the high schools and let them know exactly what this will mean to them. Since as all of our students are now responding to a start of the spring session that will be earlier than what it has been in the past, we'll also have to know all of our in-district high schools the fact that it's going to change as well. So outreach will be a major component.
And if we time it correctly, it may only be 2 or 3 weeks after they get out for their normal schedule anyway.
Yes.
So for many high school students, when I was doing the high school bridge program, that was actually beneficial. They had a problem starting in college like an hour and a half after they graduated from high school. So this at least gives them a 2 or 3 or 4 week period before they actually start. Possibly.
Then there's also
I just think it was a call and then.
I think we also have to be clear that it's not really the number of sections that we have that's important, it's the opportunity to take those sections.
Right.
So it's not really feasible to move classes that would have been in an intersession into a fall semester or a spring semester, because that accelerated pace precludes them from being able to take a full load or have the opportunity to take those classes in the future. So we have to be careful about that. It's not just sections, it's actually when they're offered and the time frame in which they're offered to allow students to be able to complete a full load, stay full time, and have the opportunity to take the classes again.
I would say that, we got one over here, before.
My comment is most of the answers I'm hearing from up there are, we don't know, we have a plan, we don't really have a plan. I'm not really necessarily against dropping women and all that. My concern is I feel like a lot of these decisions are being made without planning. I don't know, I can't plan this year and do it next year. I understand the money issues, but major, and that's my reason.
Martha?
It actually goes to one of the questions I have, but it's essentially, I don't understand if we don't have funds to have winter and winter sessions and winter classes, how is it that we can add on those 6 classes, there's the extra units to run alongside the spring semester classes? It just doesn't make logical sense. On top of which, as Paul just pointed out, it really precludes students who are taking full load from taking real advantage of those classes and accelerating their end date to their coursework.
Yeah, I can respond, at least on the funding side of things. There are 2 things that are happening fiscally. One is, if Prop 30 passes, we will get $6.7 million back that the state's taken away from us, and that money would come in sometime, probably next June, July, or August. So there's additional money to fund more sections. In addition to that, because of the calendar changes and how we manage our FTES funding, we'll be able to use not only 12-13 FTES, but also 13-14 FTES to mount more classes. So one of the advantages of moving forward with the calendar that we're talking about right now is it gives us many more options on the back end to be able to provide as robust a schedule as possible for students and the various needs that they have.
Does that answer? Danny, I'll get to you in a second. Martha, I know you had 2 more questions and you were next up on the roster. So do you want to ask your final 2 questions, or should I read them?
Go ahead and read them.
Okay, there were 2 concerns that Martha has. One is about this might encourage folks taking up to 20 units or more, and how do these short-term courses ensure student success? And let's go with that one first and get an answer, and then we'll go to the last one.
So if I understand the question, might encourage students to take 20 units or more?
In other words, if they're taking 12 units for a full load and they stick week intersession courses or running alongside of them, they'll be taking an extra set of courses in order to maintain the expectation of exit at a certain date, which means that they'll be taking as many as 17 to 20 units, which does not encourage student success in their coursework.
I don't know if I agree with the first Dr. O'Legal, since she said making eye contact when we sign.
To be specific in the question, how does this new configuration actually promote student success when actually students are being asked to take overload classes, which all studies tell us when they're overloaded in that way, they're not successful in their courses.
Well, you're right. The calendar does, will in fact warn some students, and I don't know if it applies generically to everything, but it will warn some students to possibly look at the possibility of, if you will, overload, and that is taking a short-term class for what would normally be a winter session the first 6 months of the spring, and then followed up with a short-term session, which would be less than the full term 16 weeks, to complete by the end of what is normally known as a spring semester. I would suggest that for those students, to make sure that we underpin them for success, that we need to work with those students, and I'm sure Dr. O'Legal and council will pick this up, to look attentively at each one of those, make the determination of how many of those students can be benefited by potentially carrying some of that coursework over into the beginning of a summer session, if you will, which will allow them to complete the first half of that right about May of June, which in essence will have the students completing the coursework right in the same general chronological time frame that they normally would if we were making no adjustment to the winter session schedule.
So I know that, Cynthia and then Simon like to follow up with this.
Operationally, what that looks like, Martha, is at this point, students submit a petition if you want to take more than 19.3 units in fall or spring. You submit a petition. And then I get those petitions and I review your academic record to see if you would be successful taking more than 19.3 units. If I don't think that you will be based upon your previous academic record, then I deny the petition. And then some students come and meet with me and we discuss why I made that decision. Now in intersessions, What the current catalog indicates is that students can take a maximum of 8.3 units in an intersession. So I think we have to honor what the catalog indicates in terms of the unit load, and then just submit a petition if you wanted to exceed that number. And I'll do what I've always done, which is review your academic record to make that decision. And students are always welcome to come in and talk with me about the decision that was made. It's always with your best interests in mind.
No, Simon has a vote.
Yeah, I understand the concern completely.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like it. Yeah, I understand the concern completely. That was the first concern that I had, and when Dr. Bell mentioned this to me, was the idea of concurrently running a 6-week and a 16-week class. Because I know, from my own point of view, I'm not a student that can take 20 units or 21 units. And if I was to take a 6-week class along with a 16-week class, well, the 16-week class is just going to be done because I'm not paying any attention to it for 6 weeks. One of the things AS is looking, because we also understand that students need to have the opportunity to continue those courses that they would have had in the 6 weeks to move on, especially this is important for sequential classes such as the physics series and the math series and so on. So one of the things that AS is going to be looking to do over the next couple of weeks is opening discussions with the instructional side of the house, and especially in divisions where there are sequential courses, to see if there is a possibility of segmenting them further within the spring semester. And this is just something that we've had an idea, but we know that for some classes it's not going to work, such as, for example, Physics 1C, where you couldn't do that in a 6-week with any kind of reasonable, especially after coming from a 6-week 1B. So there are some options, but we definitely understand the concern. We want to make sure that students, we understand that a lot of students can't be forced to take that 20 units, so we're going to be looking into options to alleviate that.
A follow-up about unit load. There's one question here that I think follows up with this, which is, can someone who's taking a shorter term session be considered a full-time student with a lower number of units, specifically thinking about for financial aid reasons, right?
And public transportation.
And public transportation
Like
and those kinds of elements.
So the public transportation, Simon would have to respond to that, since that program is offered through the associated students. In terms of financial aid, 8.3 units is used as the marker. I'll have to ask Kim Miles to provide us with some further information to see if there's any possible way for you to be considered a full-time during, let's say, summer 1 or summer 2, what unit value you need. And how about if we post that answer on the FAQ site so that everybody will know that info?
That'd be awesome.
And if I could respond on transportation, the Metro ICAP currently isn't offered during the intersessions right now anyway.
Okay.
One of the things that we're going to have to look to do is open a conversation with Metro and let them know that we're changing our academic calendar. This may necessitate some change to the agreement in some ways. There's going to have to be a bit of a negotiation process, which we're going to start to look at least preparing our side of it, so the PCC side of it this week, sending that over to purchasing and legal over here, and then start having that conversation. That conversation will happen this semester, so we'll know. I can't give you a time frame on it, but we're going to know pretty soon.
Simon, you can work directly with me on that, if you would, please.
Yeah.
And before we leave this, I think that's the first question. As Kim Miles, as we talked to Kim about the any flexibility that we can do to make sure that we get through the full local financial aid, I'm going to encourage Kim to contact the Department of Education, since we are changing the academic calendar, to discuss with them how much flexibility we have to make any necessary adjustments to keep students as whole, if you will, up to full-time as possible, responding to the changes in the calendar.
Follow up with that though. So that means for what we're calling summer session 1 and summer session 2, you mean you're going to have to get it down as a policy that number of units is full-time? Because you don't have that now, right? What is established as a full-time load for the summer session 1 or 2?
Melva, right now I know that 8.3 is the maximum number of units that you need. I need to check with Kim to see what is considered full-time in winter, in our traditional summer and winter.
Just because whatever it is, we need to also relay that to students, possibly in letter form, because a lot of their insurance providers, if they're dependent under the age of 24, the insurance is not going to cover them unless they're considered full-time students throughout the year. So whatever that is, we are going to have to get that down on paper.
Yes, and I'll list that on the FAQ. I'll get the question and the answer on the calendar hotline.
I want to note that we're getting a little short on time, and many of us have to teach. There are a few more questions that I'm going to kind of truncate to that have to deal directly with faculty, if that's okay, Justin. The first one has to deal with how is this new schedule going to affect folks who have performance or conference schedules already planned for the spring, and then likewise for folks who had planned and had travel plans or conference plans during the traditional winter. What is the administration going to do to work to support those two issues?
Okay, well, we're going to work to support that. One word that is going to cut through everything we're going to do with this calendar change is to infuse as much flexibility as possible. So for a faculty member who has plans for the winter session, travel plans, whatever the case may be, such that they are not planning to, nor are planning to teach during the 6-week period from the start of January to mid-February. What the deans will do is work individually with those faculty members to look to build their contracted load in the second half of the spring semester and the first part of the summer, which in essence would have that faculty member completing their contracted load by mid-June, which again is the same configuration of time that the faculty member would normally complete their contracted load under the current academic calendar. And that 6-week period will still be open for a faculty member to not be here, to not be under contractual obligation to teach.
Is there a follow-up to that? We'll go in the back first.
I have a really hard time seeing how that promotes student success. Have a faculty member gone for 6 weeks, and what are we talking about? A class being taught by someone at the beginning and someone else at the end. I mean, really feasibly doing that. That sounds like one of the end results of hasty planning, where faculty have been planning their schedules. I have 6 months ago, or whenever our calendar came out, I made a reservation for spring break that I will lose and not be able to get back in for another year to a place I wanted to take my kids at spring break. Spring break is going to change. I've lost my vacation. Now, you know what? That's fine, but when we're talking about 6 weeks and moving people in half of this semester and half of that semester, I just don't see how that supports student success based on a hasty decision that didn't get a lot of shared governance involvement. That's just my feeling about it.
Martha, do you want to follow that up?
Which is what my follow-up question to that would be is, what is the administration's plan, given the crisis of confidence on campus and in the community, based on the lack of shared governance in this decision-making process?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to respond to that from my own particular perspective, and I appreciate the comments from the audience on the fact that this was, as all the perception of being done hastily, and it was a decision that, as I understand from my new here, that has been an ongoing discussion which precedes my arriving at PCC 13 months ago. With respect to the shared governance process, from this point forward is going to be my commitment and the administration's commitment to begin the process of doing these discussions in a much more transparent process and engaging more people in the discussion of planning from this point going forward. Now, for many people, that may be like, okay, well, that's putting the cart way behind the horse out there, $6, whatever that expression is, the bar door is closed and everybody's gone. And I understand that at that level, but again, it's my commitment to try to do this as much as possible. So with respect to the fact that faculty has planned to split classes, obviously those are the kinds of pedagogical and challenging discussions we're going to have in San Francisco to figure out how we're going to be able to make this work as best as possible, given the fact that we've adopted this new calendar. It's not a perfect one-size-fits-all. It's going to take some adjustment, and I don't think it's going to really, in the ultimate end of it, be the perfect solution to everyone for this upcoming spring 13 calendar. But we're going to work. But to your question, Mark, one of the ways I hope we will do it is to have much more open, broad, transparent discussions like this, where I get more of what I'm hearing now, we get more of what we're hearing now, direct feedback from faculty and students on how we can best go forward to make this work.
And also, Dr. Governor, quickly, unless I misunderstood, we're not talking about having the semester classes be taught by one teacher for the first half and another teacher for the second half, are we? We're talking about short-term classes to be able to fill loads. So a student would start with a faculty member at the beginning of class and end with that same faculty member. We're not talking about splits, right?
Yeah, no, we're not talking about a faculty member teaching the first 6 weeks of a term in class, and then another faculty member coming in and teaching the last 2/3 of it. We're talking more about a faculty member who would be teaching a compressed class, if you will, a 12-week class or a class shorter than term length.
All right, I saw a couple of follow-ups, and then we have one more question. And then if you haven't gotten your questions in, I'm sure these folks will hang out for a little bit so you can do some follow-ups, but I know many of us have to go to class. So I'm going to take these two, and then do the last comment card that I have. So I'll start with Andrew. Oh.
Follow up to the comments that came up about fiscal problems. What makes us so sure that that measure is going to pass? In this economy, it's a very good possibility that people are not going to vote for that. So how is that going to impact this?
Well, one quick answer to that is that we plan a budget that basically is based upon the fact that the Proposition 30 will not pass. So our budget is balanced. That much we know. Secondly, because of the way in which the state is paying us this go around for 12-13, we're getting 40% of our revenue that we would have normally got in the first quarter in June of 2013. So we're going to have a significant amount of additional cash coming in for the 12-13 year in June. Obviously, it's too late to really spend that money for the 12-13 year. So we're going to be, at least from a cash point of view, a little better off than we are right now. So we will at least have that money to help start the 13-14 year, as well as what we would normally get in 13-14.
And we have one more follow-up question on this.
I just wonder, I'm just being naive here, but I don't understand why you said the day last spring. That's the part that gets me. We keep alluding to hazy or whatever, but I've heard of why it has to be that way.
Well, again, the decision of the board, the recommendation of the administration to go to the current calendar would have to get it for some time. And if I sound like I'm being evasive, it's not intended to be that way. That's not my intent. The discussions on the possibility of going through this calendar, you say last spring, you talked in spring 12 or?
I'm just thinking, the board had decided last spring, all these questions now would be able to be answered, nobody would have travel plans for winter or anything like that. So I'm not quite sure why October was the decision made, and in September was the decision made for something that's going to affect us in January. It just seems in all my years here, we've never made such a late decision about something so big.
Particularly when our book orders and our class planning is usually done ahead of time by a year.
Do you guys have a brief response?
I mean, something necessitate that, or is that something? Yeah, I'm not trying to be smart here, I'm naive. Is something necessitate a sudden change? We could have seen coming? I know they've talked about the calendar for a while, but why all of a sudden does the board have to vote on it now?
Well, again, the recommendation from the administration to the board was to go forward now, based upon, again, and I know I'm sounding like I'm trying to evade answering your question, that isn't the case. But again, based on discussions I understand occurred prior to the beginning of this current academic year, in fact, prior to the beginning of the academic year 11-12 just concluded. So it's based on a previous level of discussions that have been had. And if I sound evasive, I really apologize, but it wasn't a snap decision.
And I can provide a more specific answer if this will help. We were not going to be able to have a winter intersession because we just didn't have the funding for it. By starting the spring sooner, i.e. going to the 16-6 model, this buys us the time to add those sections back if and when Prop 30 passes, or if and when we have a better sense of what's going on. So part of the reason why the board decided to go forward now was to basically, hopefully, provide more classes to students and greater access.
There's one last question I think is going to be an important one to follow up with. Charlie, are you still here? Charlie, do you want to ask it, or do you want me to read it for you?
It was already answered a while ago.
Okay. You feel good about it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So with that, are there any last follow-up questions? I've got two, so I'll go first.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, and maybe this is kind of redundant. I just had a student, she left. She says she's seen this online. It's extremely confusing to her as a student. She says this calendar doesn't make any sense to her visually. Like, if you guys could have something that's a little bit more student-friendly, so students can see, like maybe a timeline scenario where they can see when they start and end. Because she's just extremely flustered with it, and I don't understand it, and this doesn't make any sense to me. This slide calendar here. And I don't know if there is something else that I haven't seen. This is the first time.
Melba, I'd invite you to meet with Juan Gutierrez and give him your ideas, and I'm sure you'd be happy to put something else out that would make sense.
If I can as well, we're going to be, all those 5,000 planners that we put out, which are now out of date, We're going to be reprinting a whole bunch with a new academic calendar. But we'll give those out to students, and we're going to have to get more so that we can replace the old ones, unfortunately. But also we're having this Thursday evening at 7 o'clock right here, we're having a student informational town hall, where a lot of this information that student centers will be given, and a lot of student-oriented questions like what happens when a student has travel plans, like I won't be here for the start of the semester. And so these sort of questions will be able to be brought up then as well. We're also going to be producing new bookmarks and new sort of little materials like you may have seen with the spring calendar on it, once we get confirmation that the dates are the dates. So as soon as we get confirmation that it's the September or January 7th or 14th, we're going to be producing a whole host of literature and distributing it as widely as possible.
All right. With that, this will be our final comment, and then if you, again, would like to ask folks afterwards, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer your questions. Yeah.
I have a slip up there, and I was just wondering if we're in the spring, in this coming semester, if we're still going to have the same hourly class schedule, like Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, or are we going to go back to the 50-minute Monday, Wednesday, Friday pattern that is so pedagogically critical?
Oh, so that's a discussion around the Carnegie Hour, is that right?
We are on the Carnegie Hour. You can't be accredited and not be on the Carnegie Hour. Carnegie Hour simply means, I looked it up, 50 minutes of contact with your teacher per 60-minute hour. For a 3-unit class, that's 150 minutes a week. That can be divided up in any way. There's no rule that it has to be 350 minutes or...
So it sounds like your question is, are we moving to schedule change along with this new calendar? Can you guys answer that?
Yeah, so in response to your question, the times of the class, the meeting times just are not going to change.
Okay, so it'll be like this semester.
Correct.
Hallelujah.
With that, I'm going to say that,
In all due respect to the library, who's going to be giving my talk, I need to leave. But before I go, I have written all your questions down. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. You've asked really good questions. We will ask follow-ups based on those questions. We hope to have more of these forums going forward. This is not the last time we'll have one of these forums. If you have any suggestions about what topics we should cover in the future, please feel free to let me know, either by email, dahandy@pasadena.edu, or you can come by the Senate office in C227. I do need to, again, Frida Lynn at the library is asking me to be there. I don't want to be for the work for my class. So
right, and as we also finish, for faculty who are more interested, remember that there will be an FA meeting in this location on Thursday, and we encourage you to attend that too. I'm sorry to cut it short. Have a great rest of your day. Feel free to come on up and ask any follow-up questions. Thank you for coming.